First part of Chapter 4, Lesson 4, we're going to go over the GCF, which is called the greatest common factor, and we're going to go over the guess and check method to factor. So when we're talking about factoring, it's basically working backwards. It's getting back to something that might look like this, or something that might look like this. So it's working backwards from multiplying. Put a 3 there, let's just say. So that's what we're trying to get to, an answer that looks like this or maybe like this. So the first thing you should always do whenever factoring, is see if there is something in common. So when I look at this problem right here, I look and I see, oh, 3 and 12, they both have a 3 in common. They also both have an x in common. So I'm going to factor that out. When you're factoring something out, it's basically dividing each term by whatever you're taking out. So the first term right here, if I were to simplify 3x squared over 3x, I'm left with just an x. If I'm going to simplify this one, I go, okay, 12 divided by 3, that's 4. So I'm going to have a 4 out in front. And x over x, that's the same thing as if I had 5 over 5 or 2 over 2. That's completely gone. So this right here would be my final answer. You can always check your work because this right here should be able to bring you back to the original. So if I were to check my work, I would distribute that in. 3x times 3x would give me 3x squared, and 3x times 4 is 12x, which was my original. So it works out. I want you to do this one by yourself. Now a couple of things on a problem like this. You can take out the 3x, which I did, and then you divide each term by 3x. This first one, when I divide by 3x, I'm left with a 3x. This is subtraction in the middle. This should stay as subtraction unless if you're dividing by a negative. And finally, when I have 3x over 3x, a lot of people think that that's gone. It's just out of there. However, that is not the case. Anything divided by itself is always going to be equal to 1. You still have to represent that number. So your final answer would be 3x and then in parentheses 3x minus 1. Again, do this one by yourself, please. So we have 2x on the all-hand side and then 2x squared minus 13, and that would be your final answer. And now we have something with a binomial or a quadratic where I have two x's and I want to get back to the original. So binomial times a binomial. So something in parentheses times something in parentheses. The first thing you should do is find the factors of both your first term and your last term. So the factors of 2 would be 2 and 1, or negative 2 and negative 1. The factors of 3 would be, actually it's a negative 3, they're negative 3 and 1 or negative 1 and 3. And what you have to do is basically guess and check. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you have or keep your work very organized. So if I guess and check here, I'm going to say that my A is going to be 2, mark that as A, and 1. And then I'm just going to start guessing and checking. So if I pick my two factors for C to be negative 3 and 1, first thing you have to do is multiply your A's and C's together. So in this case it would be negative 6 and 1, and you want to add those together. This would give me a negative 5. You're looking for the middle term to be negative 1, so that one does not work. So now I'm going to guess and check again. I'm going to again still pick my A's to be 2 and 1. I'm going to pick my C this time. I'm going to use the same numbers but just flip-flop them because they will give you different answers. So again, if I check this row and multiply my A's and C's together, this would give me a 2 and this would give me a negative 3. And if I add those together, I would get a negative 1, which that's what I was looking for. So this one works out. When you're writing out your parentheses though, you have to be careful. For this first A and C combination, whatever is with the x to begin with, so that's my A, should stay with your x. My two variables, or my two factors for A would be 2x and 1x. Those were both my A's if you look here. This is where you have to be careful because this first 2 was being multiplied by 1, so they can't be in the same parenthesis. So I'm going to put the other one in the second parenthesis. And if I look at this combination right here, that C is being multiplied by 1, from the A. So they have to be in separate parentheses. So again, if you want to check your work, you could FOIL this out by first, outside, inside, last, and you would get the 2x squared minus x minus 3. But again, it's just finding the factors of A and C and then guessing and checking. So again, just to go over the steps for guess and check, first thing you want to do is find the factors of both A and C. You multiply one A factor by the other C factor. You want to try them then to add them together to get your B. You have to keep guessing if it's not right. Remember, this is where you get your A, B, and C in standard form. So we're going to use this problem 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. So we're going to find the factors of A, which would be 3 and 1, and the factors of C, which would be 2 and negative 1, or negative 2 and positive 1. So again, it's just guessing, checking. When you're guessing, checking, make sure you keep your information, your factors that you're multiplying, in good organization. So I'm going to put my 2 and I'm going to put negative 1 here. So here, this would give me 6, and this right here would give me negative 1 because I'm multiplying these two together. And then once you have those, you add them together, and that would give me 5. That doesn't work. I'm going to flip-flop those then, and I'm going to have my 3 times negative 1 and for my A and C, and I'm going to have my 1 times 2 for my A and C. This would give me a negative 3 and a positive 2, which would give me a negative 1. It does not work again. So again, I'm going to have my A be 3 and 1. And now I'm going to check for when my 2 is negative and 1 is positive. So then this would give me a negative 6 and a positive 1. If I add those together, that would give me a negative 5. So this combination works. Now when I write out my answer here, I always like to write my A factors first. And then once I get those, here's my pair. I have to make sure that they're in separate parentheses. So the negative 2 should go in the other one, and the positive 1 should go in the other one. If you look here, above, I still got 5, but it was a positive 5. If that ever happens, you could just switch the signs of your second factors of C, and it should still get to the opposite sign. So this right here would be my final answer. And last but not least, my factors of A would be 4 and 1, 2 and 2. My factors of 3, or of C, would be 3 and 1. I want you to pause the video and start guessing and checking by yourself. As you can see, I first checked 4 and 1 for my factors of A, and I tried it both ways and didn't work, so then I checked my factors of 2 and 2 for factors of A, and that one worked. So now when I'm writing this out, looking at that, first going to write out my factors of A. This is a little bit different, but this 2 should be multiplied by this 3, so then they should be an opposite, and this 2 should be multiplied by this one. The reason why this one is not as difficult, when you have two factors the same, it doesn't really matter which parentheses the other two should be in. So there you have it. Greatest common factor and guessing and checking. Have a great, grand, wonderful day.